I have to admit, I really miss Steve Jobs and the old Apple. I kind of decided to make this video as soon as I could because this topic's been pretty much on my brain all day, and you know, my room's a mess right now. I didn't set up for nothing. I literally just got home from running my store, and I just wanted to get this out. So on Saturdays, I work a full-time job to support my wife, my newborn son, so I had a 12-hour shift today. And during that entire shift, I was listening to the biography about Steve Jobs. And after that, I went ahead and watched the two movies that came about Steve Jobs. And I know that both were historically inaccurate, but either way, it kind of showed a brief snapshot of what Steve Jobs did with Apple over the course of 30 years. Or more than 30 years at that point. And then after that, I just kept watching clip after clip of his talks, his speeches from back in 1980, 84, in the mid 90s to now. And it reminded me, I literally sat there and was just like, I fell in love with Apple again. And I'm not talking about the current Apple. Right now, I think a lot of you who watch actually my videos, I'm not happy with the current company. I know a lot of people are. There's a large fan base out there that, it's ever since the iPhone came out, they've just been nothing but Apple. And I understand. But I feel like a lot of those people are just following what the current one is, and they fail to realize where the company came from. And when they hear these criticisms about them not being innovative, them lacking, vision and everything, and they're so quick to defend the company. But I feel like a lot of these people don't know truly where Apple really started. And obviously I don't have time to sit here and go over through the entire history. There's plenty of videos out there. There's plenty of biographies and movies out and books you can read all about Steve Jobs, his missions, his motivational statements. Everything about the man is pretty much out there. And looking back at their history, I kept thinking, what can they do? What can they do different? I kept thinking, it's like, what can Apple do to go back to its roots and everything? And after reading everything and watching everything, it essentially just became, go back to your roots. In a nutshell, Steve Jobs set out to make a company that thought outside the box, that thought to the future, that thought down the line. Pretty much create something not because it's market standard and it's on par, it's the best in its category, to create the next category, the new category. Think about the end user. Think about ways to improve the end user. Think about things that are solutions that no one has even thought of. Pretty much the essence of the very first computer. And if you look at Apple's history, it went from a time of true innovation, pushing the envelope and just super crazy R&D and everything. And then it hit a lull moment, which was around the time when the board of Apple decided to pretty much force Steve Jobs out. Essentially, they pretty much pulled the rug under him and left them to dry. And essentially in the years following that, they decided to just, go with what the market was doing. Essentially compete in the current market segments, try to make devices that competed, and essentially it failed. Stock prices kept going down, they were on a downward trend, the board was starting to freak out, the shareholders were freaking out, so they ultimately asked Steve Jobs to come back. And from that moment forward, even ever since the Macintosh, if I actually defy you to go back and look at all the recorded press conferences that Steve Jobs did for all the releases, for the Macintosh, the iMac, the Power Mac, the iPod, everything. Every time I watched those presentations, I remembered why I fell in love with Apple. I remember why my dad fell in love with Apple. They just made you think ahead. Just a quick little jab, the iMac, when it came out, I believe in 1998, from what I remember today, they were touting the iMac as the most powerful laptop at the time that could run Adobe Photoshop and all these programs, multimedia, video, rendering. It did it in a much faster and smoother rate than the most expensive competitive PC version. I want you to hear me out on this. Apple was promoting a product that not only beat the competition in performance, but also in price. They priced this thing to beat the competition outright. And it was designed beautifully at the time. There was color, the way it was designed was elegant. It was just like, hold on a second. Are you telling me Apple used to do this? And I totally forgot about it. Looking back, Apple was always a company that kept pushing the limit. And not even pushing the limit, but always rethinking the social norm. You know, everything from why have a keyboard attached to the monitor when you can remove it, to adding color to a PC market that was relatively dull in the 90s. And just like everything else in the 90s, including the cars, the computers were very boring looking. And they decided to add some color. And then from there, make the chips and transistors more and more efficient, bigger, everything, just bigger and better. And ultimately leading up to the release of the iPod. And the iPod was just simply the genesis of essentially the future iPhone and everything. And it was nuts. I mean, if you look at the past 30 to 40 years of Apple, and look at the amount of changes. I actually defy you. Think about the year 2000 to 2010, and then you compare 2011 till now. The jump and leap in innovation from the company has definitely been lacking. I mean, I look at myself right now, and I'm a business owner, and the reason why I got into business is because I was working for corporate America, and I wasn't happy. And like, I know most of you are. A lot of people out there aren't happy with their career choices, but do what they need to do because they need to survive, or that is just what they're good at, or that's what, you know, they believe they can do. That's the best that they can do. And at the end of the day, if you truly want to be happy, you have to work for it. You have to literally sacrifice everything and work for your happiness. Work for yourself. I mean, that's just a variation of a quote that Steve Jobs said. I can't remember for verbatim right now. But essentially I realized that I could just keep doing the same day-to-day grind, where I can really go out and make something for myself, and not just for me, but really truly create something that can be enjoyed and loved by a lot of people, as well, you know, as well as be able to make some money on the side and be able to secure my own future within my own means. You know, say what you want about Steve Jobs. There's a lot of negative articles out there about the man, but he was a true innovator. He was the one that kept pushing the envelope, that kept pushing people to go beyond their limitations and their bubbles, to really expand it. I mean, the fact that a video from over 30 years ago can get me pumped up. I mean, if you look at the Apple press conferences of back then, people were always standing, they were cheering, they were engaged in everything. But the press conferences lately, I can't help but feeling they've been staged. And I sort of feel like this era of Apple is sort of similar to the period when Steve Jobs was gone from Apple beforehand. They're just essentially riding the current price that they've made, their successes and well-known successes, and obviously growing market share. That's fine and dandy, but competitors are catching up. Not to say that, you know, Samsung, Motorola, HTC, all these companies are going to surpass Apple, but the companies become stagnant. In terms of innovation, I'm not going to talk about finances. I know it's business, corporate America, they're the most valuable company in the world. I understand. But I feel like there's no more passion coming out of the company anymore. They're simply just interface, you know, generic upgrade design and data gathering. They're just there now to gather your data. And I just feel like the passion has all but disappeared from the company. And why I'm so motivated to feel this way, it's because, I want someone to tell me right now, what in the last 5 years, let's just say, what has Apple released first? What have they really come out to really revolutionize or innovate their segment, or a different segment, or turn a segment and make it different, or make someone think of a certain device or a daily habit differently? They haven't done any of these first. I know a lot of you may argue with me that no, they released the watch versus all these other pieces of technology, and no, consistently they've been behind everyone in releasing their respective versions of the tech instead of being first. And I know a lot of Apple fans probably haven't watched this part of the video, but for those of you that did, I know another argument is that they're in the pursuit of perfection. So when they release their version of their product, that it's better than everyone else in the market segment, and they have the most premium product. But again, that hasn't been the case. My biggest example is the Apple Watch. They had pretty much over 3 years in development, of wait time and seeing what the competitors did. Pebble, Samsung, Android Wear, everything. They could see what they did. They saw all the features that these competitors were adding on, and they decided to omit more than 50% of it in order for you to buy the Apple II. Gen 1, oh, it doesn't have waterproof. They didn't think about putting it in. So what does Gen 2 have? Waterproof, so you can buy the next one. And that's just one of many other things. So yes, maybe they made slight improvements to certain things, but was it revolutionary? Did it change the way you interacted with the devices? No. And I know there's a lot of trollers out there that also comment, well, they can't, make everyone happy. If you want an innovative product, go to the company that makes it. A lot of people give these, excuse my language, but half-assed arguments about why my opinion is wrong. And it's not wrong, it's my opinion. And I know you have your own, and I respect that. You believe with the way you believe about a company, but for those of us who originally followed Apple, we're starting to lose faith a little bit, because I feel like, and I think a lot of people will agree, like I said earlier, the company has really lost its drive. I mean, to this day, I thank people like Steve Jobs, because he truly came from nothing. He worked his butt off early on with all the founding fathers pretty much of that company, and he was relentless in the pursuit of the perfect end user experience, and he was never satisfied. And I want to say a lot of my motivation to run my own company right now comes from him. And you can go to my store, you can go to my old videos, you can go to ask even my customers, and that reigns so true even to a little game retail shop like me. I started off my business focusing on the end user experience first. I didn't care about what merchandise I carried, what was the bottom line, what foods and everything. I focused on first what I thought the customer experience was lacking currently in the market. That was my pure early, that was pretty much what I was driving on. I didn't have much starting this business. It was actually suicidal financially to start this business, but I decided to do it anyway because this was the time for me to do it. If I waited any longer, my son would have been born. I would have never opened this business. And again, you can go to my Facebook page for the business and look at all the pictures. For the store has never really remained the same for more than a few weeks, ever. I've either always made sudden changes or major changes in order to keep improving the customer experience. Anytime I saw there was an inefficiency, way to do things better, I made it happen. I just did it. There's no second guessing. Just do it. Didn't like it, we'll fix it again, we'll adjust it, whatever. But it was a continuous, relentless, and it's still going on today, because actually in 2 days, I'm probably gonna spend all Monday morning building new furniture and rearrange the store again. But everything I do is to enhance that customer experience. And that really chimes with what Steve Jobs did with Apple. They were relentless back in the day. I don't feel like it is now, but back in the day, they were really relentless on getting that experience not just right, but to really push the envelope, to make you change the way you interacted with devices. I've made a lot of videos being angry at Apple, and that anger really stems from not hating their products, but just, I don't know what the word is, but really just missing the old Apple. God, man, I was one of the first people in line to buy the first iPhone and the 3G. I bought the iPad. I wanted to get the MacBook Air, but I couldn't afford it. And I've always wanted a Mac growing up. Even through college, I've always wanted it. And it was just, but these days, I don't yearn for their products anymore because they're not, well, number one, they're not proprietary anymore. So back in the day, they made their own chips, but they've outsourced and they're focusing on the software. And I understand a lot of you have pointed out to me that they're working on the user interface. They're making the software more unique and everything, but has the iOS really changed that much in 7 years? Or sorry, almost 8 years now. Yes, I understand it has. There's been graphical changes, there's been icon changes, little interaction changes. Like, I understand all that. But have they really taken that leap forward? Now, I'm not sitting here saying that, oh, I wish they made virtual reality and I wish they made electric cars first. I wish they, no. I just wish that they would have done something different in the market. They haven't really introduced a new segment into the market, a new differentiator, while all these other companies have been doing things. And yes, you know what? A lot of you will argue with me, and I will agree. They've probably been working on something. They don't have all these billions of dollars building a brand new state-of-the-art facility just to sit there to make the next iPhone. No, they're definitely brewing something right now that I really hope that just shuts me up. I really hope that like Tim Cook is just like, just kidding. I learned from Steve. I know what I'm doing. Here you go, ladies and gentlemen. And they just really revolutionize the way you think about interacting with other people, getting your information. Because right now, I read a couple news articles about them now dabbing in AR technology. No, they've been looking into AR because I'm pretty sure Google's not the only company and Google and Microsoft. So Google's been the Google Glass. By the way, they're most likely working on Google Glass 2 or a new version of it, and the Microsoft HoloLens. I'm pretty sure Apple's not sitting by idly. Yes, virtual reality, does Apple really want to get into that? Yes and no, I don't know. But their main focus is user interface and social interactions and how to go about improving your daily life. And AR is the solution, and it truly will be. And there was an episode of Futurama that highlighted this, but they can literally make the iPhone. And essentially, if they're able to integrate glasses or even contact lenses in the foreseeable future as the new interface to interact with your social interactions, your digital interactions, everything, that's really going to take it to a whole new level. But they have to do it right, and they have to do it better. Because if Microsoft's already out and they're continuously making the HoloLens smaller and smaller and more efficient, and Google has been working on it forever. So Apple can't come out of the gate looking like, I mean, everyone's gonna love it. I mean, that's just how Apple is. Anytime they announce anything, people think it's, you know, at least their fan base believes that it's the newest and greatest thing and they'll go buy it. But I hope that they don't get lazy like that, because sooner or later that will come to bite them in the back. And I feel like the company has just so much more potential. And I know that they have the creative team there, and I know that Steve Jobs' legacy still exists in that company. I want to see Apple succeed, not in terms of money. I know they're successful people. I'm tired of hearing that. They have all the money in the world and everything. That's not what I'm talking about. I want them to be the true leader of the wolf pack and the true leader and pushers of innovation and be truly the most valuable, innovative technology company in the world. They're the ones that motivated me to really push myself. And the fact that the man who founded the company was one of my influencers in starting my own business. I miss that inspiration, and I hope and pray that one day, hopefully soon, Apple really just shuts me up, shuts the rest of the naysayers up and saying that, hey, we heard you, here you go.